Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Criterion, your channel exclusively reviewing and previewing new releases in the collection. In this edition, we look at Hong Kong director Tsui Hark with his 1995 martial arts film, The Blade, coming to the collection on 4K UHD. Tsui Hark is one of the boldest directors in Hong Kong cinema's golden age. He already has the Once Upon a Time in China 5-film set in the Criterion collection. The Blade is his 1995 film starring Vincent Zhao as Ding An, who, after losing his arm in an ambush, transforms himself into a furious avenger. Now, this film's notable for its unusual style of filming, which includes dramatic close-ups, employment of coloured gels, and frenetic camera work employed during the fight sequences. It's a reimagining of the 1967 Shaw Brothers film One-Armed Swordsman. This Golden Harvest title, The Blade, concerns a young man named Ding An, Wenzhou Xiao, who is chosen by his master to be his successor at the sword factory. An was saved by his master as a small child after his parents were killed by a tattooed warlord in a battle, and he doesn't want the responsibility his master has placed on him, and so he leaves the village and everyone he knows to embark on a quest to discover his roots. Now, when he encounters a horde of bandits who are led by the very warlord who killed his parents, he engages, but in the fight, he loses most of one of his arms. Resolved to get double revenge, he must first figure out how to adapt to his disability and develop a cutting-edge style of martial arts so that he can defeat his foes later. He aligns himself with another orphan, a young woman who is on a similar quest as his, and in the interim of his recuperating phase, his master and the sword factory are overrun with villains who declare war on them. Well, he must come to their rescue, muster his courage, and show the tattooed warlord that he is boss. From director Tsui Hark, a few years before he made Double Team and Knockoff with Jean-Claude Van Damme, The Blade is a heavy-handed kung fu movie, but it certainly has Hark's signature style on it. Smoky, bloody, and dramatically haphazard, it tries hard to entertain, but Hark's sensibilities, swishing camera moves, cheated angles as characters fly around trying to impale each other with swords, are so overpowering that the movie is never quite cohesive. Now, technically, the film follows the same plot cycle of most kung fu films. It's easy to map out the storyline within the first 10 minutes, really. But within that structure, Hark inserts a sense of madness and pain that's almost palpable. Rendered through Hark's camera, The Blade's world is often nightmarish, especially when Hark lets loose with all of his little stylistic embellishments. Hark's camera is all over the place, disorienting the viewer and further cementing a sense of insanity. Now, the action lacks any sense of grace and finesse, but rather becomes swift and disturbing. And the realistic and often clumsy and brutish physicality in the film is a complete 180-degree turn from the effects-laden zoo. Now, at times, the fights become unbearable to watch, not due to gore, there's plenty of that, but by their sheer craziness. Now, the closest contemporary I can think of here is Wong Kar-wai's surreal wuxia film Ashes of Time. Both films mine similar subject matter, the subject of trying to live in peace with the past as a central theme. And he tries to deal with the knowledge of his father's true past and responds with vengeance and resourcefulness. Ling must live with her ghosts, literally, as she grows increasingly unable to deal with the violence of the world around her and the weight of the lives that she's damaged. Unfortunately, she's not really successful in her attempts. Now, the concept of violence begetting violence is another theme in the film, as is the realization that sometimes those cycles can't be broken, regardless of how much you long for a peaceful life. Now, in this regard, I'm also reminded of Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. It's another film that takes a genre's basic concepts and creates a signature film for the said genre. Not the most enjoyable or most successful, one where a genre's themes are seen as raw and perfect form as possible. However, I will hesitate at calling The Blade brilliant, for no other reason than being unorthodox or challenging to the viewer. However, I did sort of feel that I was honestly watching something unique and special with this film. Unlike some kung fu movies, The Blade is completely unswerving in its focus. There's no comedic relief. There's no silly sidekicks, and there's no needless romanticism, flaws that are often plaguing other great films of that nature. That shows a lot of confidence by the filmmaker in his subject matter. It's also an interesting counterpoint to the more commercially viable films that Hark has made, not to mention, of course, his work with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, regardless of how unremitting the film does get at times, and how violent and maddening it is much of the time, The Blade is brutally honest and it's intense. Not the best film for a new person coming to Kung Fu, but for diehards, it offers something very fresh and insightful into our favourite of genres. Now, support in the cast includes Moses Chan as Tieto, Ironhead, Hung Yan Yan as Filong, Flying Dragon, Song Lai as Ling, Austin Wai as the Master, and Chung Bika as Helto, Blackie. Now, if you're a purist of 90s Golden Harvest motion pictures, this will be a priority for you to watch. The box office on this was also poor at the time, and Tsui Hark stated The Blade didn't do well at the box office for several reasons. He thought one of the reasons was that we didn't use really big stars in the movie. He said, but he really liked the actors and they were authentic to him, and it was a bit different from what he had done before. It was a different style of action. The wuxia genre is a Chinese genre of fiction, film and TV, focusing on wandering martial artists in ancient China who adhere to a chivalrous code. They often explore themes of justice, romance and revenge within a lawless subcultural world known as Xianghu. Now, in 2009, Quentin Tarantino put this film into his top 20 favourite films that were released in the past 17 years. The Blade gets a 2-disc release in the collection, with the film on a 4K UHD disc in Dolby Vision HDR, and the Blu-ray with the film and these special features. A new 4K digital restoration with uncompressed mono soundtrack. New audio commentary featuring Hong Kong cinema expert and producer Frank Zheng. Action et Vérité from 2006, a documentary featuring director Tsui Hark, co-screenwriter Quan Hui, and actor Zhong Xingxing. New video essay by filmmakers Taylor Ramos and Tony Zhu, Every Frame a Painting. New York Asian Film Festival Q&A with Tsui from 2011. Alternate English dubbed track, international version opening and end credits, trailer, new English subtitles, and an essay by the author Lisa Morton. And the cover art is designed by Oliver Barrett. The Blade was a rare commercial disappointment for Tsui Hark, but it has since been reclaimed as one of the director's most radical visions, a tour de force of action expressionism and a scathing reappraisal of the wuxia genre's code of masculinity that achieves a feverish intensity. The film's a running time of 105 minutes. It comes in a 1:8:5:1 aspect ratio. Soundtrack is in Cantonese and it releases in the US on Tuesday the 31st of March and here in the UK on Monday the 13th of April. At its spine 1305. And this is certainly a treat for those fans of the Golden Harvest studio output and the wuxia genre. Next time on Let's Talk Criterion, we'll be taking a look at Gilda, starring Rita Hayworth from 1946. It's getting its 4K UHD upgrade in the collection. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.